Hello, everyone. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Good time of day,
Good
as
day.
Victor would always say.
Yeah.
How are you, Eowyn?
Good. I've been waiting all week for this one.
Oh, you have.
I'm
Oh, wow. No
excited. No
pressure. No
pressure. Like
pressure. I've got my
it'll be a,
genealogy
oh good. Okay.
shirt. Yeah, yeah.
No, I've
Uh,
been excited for this one.
Oh, good. Well, it's gonna. I hope it's a good presentation. Now, for those of you who are planners and have put this in your calendar, weeks in advance, you'll wonder what's happened to poor Megs because she doesn't look at all like you would expect. Mags is a not Mags Golden, who was scheduled to do this presentation, is not able to be with us, which is a very sad thing. But you're stuck with me, so I will try and be a substitute and go through. Luckily, I've learned everything I need to know about DNA from Meg, so hopefully I can just pass that on to all. So happy WikiTree week, happy WikiTree
Yes.
Friday, DNA Day of WikiTree week. So it's been a wild, very busy week, hasn't it, Eowyn?
It has. I feel like it's been like a month.
It's been a WikiTree month, hasn't it?
But it's been good. There's been some great responses to the G2G stuff we've thrown out there. I think we've had some good live casts. I've actually really enjoyed the cubicle parties.
Oh, nice. I
I
have
think
not been able to make one yet.
they've been fun. I think every night it seems like there's been a few more people that have
Hmm.
joined. So I think we might try and make that maybe like a monthly thing. Have a monthly cubicle party or something. Just because I had fun.
Yeah,
It's fun to get to know people that you just wouldn't come across probably otherwise.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That's great. Well, it's a neat idea. That's super. Well, let's dive in because there there's a lot.
yeah,
So we're here to talk about WikiTree DNA features, all about WikiTree and DNA and how the two work together and whatnot. So first of all, again, Megs very kindly has donated her slideshow, and so I have taken her PowerPoint presentation, and most of the slides you're going to see are ones that Megs has created. And you'll also see that there'll be examples from Megs and her family and her ancestors in many of them. And when you start to see Clark's and Douglas's and my family tree, though, that's a good hint that those are the ones I've
good.
had. So I've added some screenshots and things from apps and whatnot. So it'll be a mixture of Megs and myself. But I want to say up front, thank you to Megs for helping me out in this because it was only a couple days ago that I found out that I was going to be doing this. So,
Well, and thank you, Greg, for stepping in.
oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Megs and I have done a similar presentation to this before, so we have worked together through this. So I feel like we're still co-collaborating, even though she's not. She's right here. She's just my invisible buddy. She's right next to
Awesome.
me.
I like it.
So let's just see if I've got this all set up right. There we go. So we start with a little introduction to WikiTree. Now, most of you here, I think, are all familiar with this, but I thought it's a nice way to begin the presentation. And what would happen if there was only one single family tree in the world? Well, we'd be able to find all of our ancestors. See, there he is, right there. That's our great great
Grandpa.
grandfather we were looking for. It's a, wouldn't that be nice? Uh, Unfortunately, that's not the way it is with other genealogy sites. But WikiTree is not just any other genealogy site at all, is it? It's a special one. It's a single global family tree, and it is powered by, as of this morning, I've just updated this number, 1 million, can you believe it? 1,150,043 volunteers
Amazing.
are members of WikiTree. That is pretty wild. Yeah.
It is. Very cool.
Yeah. And so when you're working, when you've got that many people all adding ancestors, sometimes we have more than one profile by mistake for a single person. But the idea with WikiTree is that you have one profile for one person. So luckily, we have a way on WikiTree, we just merge them together. So there still is only the one. Of course, it's very important that we work to improve those profiles with sources. And so you can see an example there of a genealogy source there. We can add stories, we can add a full biography, we can really flesh out a person's life. And that's unlike like other sites, because you can not just have the markers, the birth, marriage, death dates, those little things. You can really flesh it out and make it your own. And we've got some wonderful projects like the Profile Makeover Challenge, for example, that really take this and do wonderful things. So they bring these people to life so we can remember them and pass them on to our children. We can add color with images, and we can add DNA. And that's one thing that separates WikiTree from all the rest. The other ones don't have this type of collaboration. We, of course, work collaboratively together. And it's a global site. We have people from all around the world. And I can tell you this week, as the Mystery Box Challenge was released and people started testing it from all over the world, it's some people from those far-flung areas of the world that are really testing its limits and letting us know that time zones aren't quite in being interpreted properly in the app. So definitely a global community. And the great thing about it is free, no money required.
Like that part.
Oh yeah, like that's a huge seller. Especially now, not all genealogists, but many of us genealogists are retired and so do have a fixed income. So that's very much appreciated. But the main focus, of course, for today is the WikiTree and DNA. I'm just setting my phone up there so I can see the time. And here is sort of an outline of what we're going to do. Now, here is a confession time. You see how this is, there was two lists. There was a getting started portion of the workshop and then a DNA portion of the workshop. And those were equal lists with the same number of items in each. You can see I have pruned some of this presentation to give me more time to finish this in the hour. So some of the stuff that's been pruned are some of those getting started stuff, like logging into and getting an account set up on WikiTree and all those initial things that you all need to know, that all of you probably do need to know, probably already know, but in introduction workshops, it's important to go over. But I'm not going to go over that because I figure you know already. So the getting started part, we are going to talk about adding your DNA test information to WikiTree, because that is something you may not know yet. And we'll talk a bit about collaboration in G2G.
Awesome.
G2G. And then the second part, we're going to be talking about DNA on profiles and different features about DNA. We're going to talk a lot about DNA confirmations and the citations. Awesome. And then we're going to end with some stuff with categories, projects, and a little bit about DNA sharing and DNA cousin bait.
Cool.
So that is the plan for the day. Does that sound like a good plan, Eowyn?
I love it.
Okay. So getting started. So first of all, of course, we talk about the honor code. The honor code is very important. And this is obviously one of the things you have to sign and agree to when you first join WikiTree. But it's also important when we're dealing with DNA, because we're obviously collaborating. And when you add your own DNA test information, that allows other cousins on the tree to connect with you. And that, of course, makes everything better, because then you can confer with each other. You can compare DNA test results. You can compare ancestor stories. Maybe they have pictures that you don't have. So it's very important. Another aspect, of course, is privacy. And we do need to respect each other's privacy. And some cousins have, there are family stories that maybe they're not quite comfortable sharing. Maybe there's relationships or surprises in relationships that you have to honor that type of privacy and that their rights. So how do you add your DNA test information? So the important thing is that what you're doing is you're not actually adding your DNA tests and all your matches. It's not like we're transferring a file from Ancestry or Family Tree Maker or Family Tree DNA. What we're doing is we're just recording in our WikiTree profile that we have taken a DNA test at these different companies. And so that tells WikiTree that there's DNA information. This WikiTreer has a DNA test done, and this other WikiTreer has done a DNA test. So it's possible that if they're at the same company, that they may have a match with each other. So we're not actually transferring any personal data, none of the chromosome data that has been collected by the DNA companies. We're just indicating where our matches or where our tests are stored. And so you get to that by clicking on the drop-down menu. So there'll be a drop-down menu with your WikiTree ID at the top, and DNA will be one of those options. And so you click on that, and then that takes you to this page here, which gives you there's an ancestors view, and that gives you a list of all the ancestors. And then if you slide over, one of the options is DNA tests. So you click on that tab, and then at the very top, there's this button that says add new test information. So you click on that. See, there's a little drop down. Can you see my cursor there? I'm not sure if you can see my cursor. Doesn't. Really. There's probably something I should have done to make my cursor visible. But at this point, I'm not sure I want to stop the presentation.
Yeah.
So you see that it says click here to select. That's a drop down. So you click on that, and then you can choose which test it is, or which company that you have tested with. And some of them, for example, have multiple different types of tests that you can choose from. Family Tree DNA, the FTDNA, for example. So there's a family finder, which is an autosomal test. But then there's also a mitochondrial DNA, which is a test that tests your lineage on your matrilineal line, your mother's line. And then there's a Y chromosome test at FTDNA, which is your patrilineal lineage, which goes your father's. And only men can do a Y chromosome test. But everyone can actually do a mitochondrial test. So men and women can both take it, and it goes to your mother and then your mother's. So, and then once you've picked the test, then you fill out this additional information optionally. So if the test tells you a haplogroup that you're associated with, then you can add that information in there, and other details about the test. And optionally, you can even put down a comment for additional information, which is sometimes helpful for other people. And then when you're done, you'll get a message saying it's been assigned. You've done the test and it all worked. So again, collaboration is a very important aspect in everything we do with WikiTree, including working with DNA and DNA relatives. And so again, it's important, of course, that we have one profile for every individual. Under one of the things that misunderstandings are inevitable, these are things from our honor code, and certainly misunderstandings are inevitable. And when you're working with DNA, if there are surprises that pop up, then that could lead to some difficulties. So be kind to each other and communicate gently, and hopefully we can avoid some difficulties.
Very nicely.
Yeah. So now I see Lisa has a question there, and maybe before we go on,
Do you want to do that one now?
I'm just thinking that because it's just related to adding the test results. So I'm just thinking that. So her question is, how can I now add my mother's DNA test information since she has passed? So let's see. because the rule, one of the things is, because DNA is a very private information, you can't add other people's DNA test information to WikiTree. You can add your own as your and if your relatives have a WikiTree account, they can add their own information. And if they're not super computer savvy or not super WikiTree savvy, then you can help them in adding their information. And you may be the manager of their DNA tests, but they still have to be the ones to add that, or you can guide them through that. Let's see. So I think that if you're your mother's manager of her DNA and she has passed, and it is her will that be included in WikiTree, I think that's legit.
You can enter a test for someone else if they're deceased.
If they're deceased, okay.
Yeah.
Good. I gave the right answer.
You did. I just double checked on the help page. Just.
Oh, did you? Okay, good.
Yeah. In fact, I think I'm going to share this.
Okay, go ahead.
The DNA FAQ help page.
Okay. Yeah. So that's an excellent question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You want to tackle that one?
Couldn't an argument be made that your deceased mother's DNA actually is your own? Well, half of it is, for sure. Half is your dad's, half of your mom. So yeah, you could technically say that. You've got a 50% stake in having this DNA test. That's true. Okay, so the other thing that's helpful on WikiTree in terms of collaboration, of course, is G2G. And you can actually search for a hashtag DNA, and you'll get the latest G2G posts that use that different hashtag in it. And you can search for questions. Like G2G is a very powerful forum, a way to ask questions of the broader community, and people will answer that. People who you don't know at all, but who have some interest in the same topics, because there's a million of us, right? There's a million of us, so someone has interests in some the same things that you do out there. The other thing is, if you go to, when you're in the G2G feed, there is a little tab that says My Feed, and I've clicked on that, and you can see this is my feed. And at the top, you'll see that there says the tags that I'm following. So some of them are last names, like Coutier and Douglas, and some of them are things like DNA is there, and Data Doctors, Fan Chart. I've added a tag for that. So if anyone does does a post with that, then I'll get notified of that. So depending on what you put in the tags that you're following, and you do that from your own profile, you can add tags that you're following. Then you can customize your G2G feed, so you can get just those ones popping up for you. I think I need to go into Do Not Disturb mode here. And so there we go. Now, DNA appears on profiles. So when you look at a profile, there is a whole section, and it's called DNA connections. And depending on how your profile is formatted, this is what a profile looks like when there's no additional browser extensions added to it. So that's the screenshot we've taken here. So the DNA connections are on your right side. And it will start with if there are Y DNA or mitochondrial DNA, those ones are listed first. And you'll see that Earl, who was Meg's father, has taken a Y DNA test. So his DNA test is listed there. And then underneath that, there's some others. There's Earl did a autosomal DNA test, as well as did Meg's. And so those are all connections to the current profile, John James Galden, who I think was Meg's great-grandfather. I think
so.
I think it's the great-grandfather. Because I think Fletcher was her grandfather.
Yeah.
I'm remembering correctly. So that's listed there. And then if you see, there's actually more than just those two who have taken. There's a whole pile of people who have taken DNA tests that are related in some way genealogically to John Galden Jr., which is going back in a few more generations. So now this doesn't necessarily mean that each of these people listed here actually are a DNA match, but it means genealogically they could be a DNA match. And there's a percentage beside each of them showing how much mathematically, if DNA came down precisely 50% from each mother and father couple to a person, how much there should be on average of DNA that is shared. And you can see some of them, you know, it gets below 1% fairly quickly. So because DNA is random, the only thing that's not random is, you know, you get 50% from your mother and 50% from your father. But after that, all bets are off. Because the 50% you get from your father, I mean, half of his came from his father and his mother, but because of the way your father and mother's DNA get combined over the 23 chromosomes and the division points in each of the chromosomes where they get recombined, that happens randomly. So you'll have close to 25% of each of your grandparents, but not exactly. Sometimes you could have like 17% of one grandfather and then 33% of his wife, the matching grandmother, right? Yeah. And then others, you might have just 24% and 26%. It could be totally even. But when you do that over a number of generations, then you can see that things can get wild. So at a certain point, there will be a certain point where you have a distant great-great-grandparent, and you may not have actually inherited any of his specific DNA.
Yeah.
You're related genealogically, and that's one of the confusing things about DNA is that on paper you're related to all these people, but the actual chromosomes in your body may not have come specifically from them. But you know what? Everything else about your family came from them, so it's not. It's all good. Let's see. One of the cool things about WikiTree is that not only do we take the tests that you have you've tested, the list of the places where you've tested before, but there's actually integrations with some of these other places. In particular, GEDmatch and mitydna.org have integrations with WikiTree, so that you can go directly from a WikiTree profile to the corresponding test on mitydna.org or on GEDmatch. So let's just show you that. So by this test here, you can see where the blue arrows are. Earl Galden took a Y-DNA test. You can see because of the little Y in the corner, I'm pointing up there. And you can see the test, the mitoY-DNA ID number for that test is T10001. And by clicking on that, it can take you directly to his Y kit, and you can see some of the markers that were part of that test. Now, mitydna.org is a site, again, and it's free. You register, and then you can upload. Now, on mitydna, you actually do upload either your Y-DNA test results or your mitochondrial test results. And then on this site, it actually does compare Y-DNA to other people's Y-DNA and gives you matches. There used to be a number of sites where you could compare Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA, but some of those aren't in business anymore. So mitoY-DNA, which was founded by our own Megs Galden, and I'm also a member of the board helping them out as well, is now a place where you can upload those tests for free and compare them with others. It's sort of, if you're familiar with the way GEDmatch works with autosomal tests, as a common place where you can compare tests from different companies of autosomal tests. mitody.org is sort of similar for the Y and the mitochondrial DNA tests.
Gotcha.
And the way to compare to, so that was how you could see an individual's test. But if you wanted to compare Earl's test to someone else's, you would click on the compare button, and then you get a little pop-up that shows up. It's already pre-populated with his test results or his test number, T10001. And then you click on someone else's, there's a T1007 on that list. And when you click that, you add that test, hit the compare button, and then it takes you to the mitody.org, and it gives you this comparison chart. So you can see where all these, all the tests are there. And the yellow are the ones where the markers are different. And you want for two matches to be close, you want as few yellows as possible. You want all the numbers to be the same for each of them, meaning that the DNA is identical or close to identical. And we have a similar integration with GEDmatch. So GEDmatch, again, is a place where you can compare autosomal DNA tests. So tests that you take at Ancestry, the family finder at WikiTree DNA, the MyHeritage tests, living DNA tests, or 23andMe. Those can be uploaded to GEDmatch, and then you can compare your DNA tests from people who have taken tests at other companies. So if you really want to see a chromosome browser and you have tests on Ancestry, GEDmatch is the place where you need to go to upload that. And then you can compare your Ancestry DNA test results with people who have taken it at all the other companies as well. So, and it works very similar. You hit the compare button, you fill in the GEDmatch tests, and then it'll take you to a screen where you can compare those to each other. There's GEDmatch is a huge tool, and there's lots of things you can do there. It's a little complicated when you first get into it, but there are now help videos that are very helpful. So if you're interested in that, I'd suggest that's a cool thing to follow up on. Maybe not if you're just beginning in DNA. Maybe give yourself a little bit of time to get comfortable with using DNA before you jump into GEDmatch, though.
Yeah.
So let's look at some of the other features in WikiTree with DNA. So if we go back to that drop-down menu for DNA, again, we started, it automatically shows you your DNA ancestors, so the people that you have inherited DNA from. And one of the things I didn't mention when we looked at this picture before is that underneath each of the names and the profile pictures are little icons. One of them says DNA with a check mark. That means that relationship has been confirmed by DNA, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Then there's an AU, which means it's autosomal DNA, and those are the 22 chromosomes that get passed on directly from mother and father to children. And then for some of them, there's a Y. Well, there won't be here because this is Meg, so you won't see a Y symbol on hers. But if it was mine, there'd be a Y going up through the paternal line. Oh, now you can see my cursor, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild. But then you'll see an MT, and that's going up through the matrilineal line. And then there's something called an X. There's an X in a number of these ones here. And we'll talk about the X chromosome because it has a really special, funky inheritance pattern. So you can click on the mitochondrial, and you can see the list of all the mitochondrial ancestors directly there. And you see that a number of them have been confirmed by DNA already. And then there's the Y chromosomes. Those have been confirmed from Earl's tests going up to his father and grandfather. And then here is the X chromosome, and it is a mixture of men and women, so it's not restricted to just one gender. but you can see that there is sort of uneven, like there's a few, 250%, some 25s, and then some weird percentages that people are inheriting. And this is best described by a chart, so I'll show you that in a sec. Okay. Because some of that same information about who your ancestors are and who inherited what can also be revealed in some of the tree apps that have been added recently.
Nice.
So let's have a look at some of those tree apps. So if we click on the tree apps tab in your profile, you can choose an app from inside that. And I'm going to just start with the fan chart. And let's go to the settings button right there. It looks like a little gear. And we're going to adjust the settings. We're going to actually choose the highlights tab. I should have highlighted that. The highlights tab is one of the settings you can change. And when you turn on highlights, what that does is it's going to pick some of the cells in your fan chart and highlight them in bright yellow so they stand out. And so there's a whole set of options you can choose from, and five of those are DNA related. So if I choose the Y DNA to highlight my Y DNA ancestors, then I get this view. It starts from myself and goes all the way up to my father, my father's father's father, and all the way up there. That whole Douglas line. If I chose mitochondrial DNA, it would do the mother's line, so it would go the other direction. And if I chose the X chromosome inheritance, which is was one of those options, it would show all of the ancestors that I could have potentially inherited some of my X chromosome from. So the X and the Y chromosome, those are actually chromosome 23. So men have an X and a Y chromosome because chromosomes come in pairs. Women have 2 X chromosomes. Males, we receive our X chromosome from our mother. We receive our Y chromosome from our father, and that's why the Y chromosome test is only fathers, fathers, fathers. And I pass on an X and a Y to my sons. I pass on an X chromosome only to my daughter, and she gets her other X chromosome from my wife, from her mother. And that's how it works for everyone. Mothers pass on an X chromosome to all of their children. Fathers pass on an X chromosome to all of their children, and a Y chromosome to their sons. I'm wrong there. Fathers pass on an X chromosome to their daughters and a Y chromosome to their sons. Yes, I misspoke there, sorry. You only pass your Y to your son, that's right. So for me, that's what my X chromosome path looks like. I inherited an X from my mother. She inherited an X from both of her parents. Her mother inherited an X from both of her parents, but her father, my grandfather, only inherited an X from his mother. So the cool thing about this X chromosome inheritance is that if you know that someone matches you on your X chromosome, then you can right away eliminate a bunch of ancestors if you're trying to find where you match. Like if you don't know how you're related, you've already done a bunch of work by eliminating a bunch of people. You don't even have to look at their family trees. Okay, so that's very cool. Now, if you were female, then you get more ancestors because you inherited both from your mother and your father, and then your father's path followed the same pattern that I had just shown you previously, and your mother's path is like that. So that for me, looking at the X inheritance on the fan chart is a little easier. But we have another app that's in the tree apps called the X Family Tree, and it also shows how the X chromosome is inherited. So Pauline is my birth mother, and so she received X chromosome from both of her parents. Her mother received from both of her parents, but her father, Joseph, only received from his mother. And so you can see it's like a family, it's like a pedigree family tree, but not all of the branches are there because not all of them gave the X chromosome.
Huh.
And this is so there's two. This is the probability tree. So the way this one works you look at the ancestors on the very top line, and I've color-coded each of them. So they each have a different color. And then you can see, as you go down, you can see what happens. So Marie passed on to her son, the X chromosome. And then Marie-Josephine Dumont received one green one from Jules and a pink one, or a combination of pink, from her mother, Philomene. And so as you go down, eventually it looks like this. So there is Pauline's X chromosome broken up into the sections based on her second great grandparents.
Okay.
So now, but this is the probability. So this is what happens if the X chromosomes were divided equally, 50-50 between mother and father. But remember how DNA is random? It doesn't always divide 50-50. And then sometimes the X chromosome, because it's tinier than some of the other ones, sometimes it just bypasses one altogether, and you just get all of the mothers and none of the fathers, or all of the fathers and none of the mothers.
Yeah.
So I built in a randomizer feature. So you can do a random simulation, and then it shows you, it just sort of randomly sets out the division points and then gives you an example of what that might look like. So you see that's not nearly as diverse. And I put a randomized button so you can just cycle through and see different combinations.
That's
and
fun.
So there's another one. So look at this one here.
That's really different.
It's all blue. There is none of this bright orange or green from the mother's side of the family. And on the father's side, none of this pink from Philomene. So that's a possibility. It could, so it's kind of cool. So if you're dealing with the X chromosome, you have to know that the randomness can be a factor. So then there's other things you can look at in the DNA section. You can look at all the DNA descendants, which is very helpful if you're trying to find cousins.
There was a question that kind of related to that. Do you want to?
Sure. To try to find a missing maternal great-grandfather, I'd better to look at my brother's X DNA matches rather than my own to cut down the numbers. Yes, that would definitely cut down the numbers of other family trees that you have to look through. But because it's so random, your brother may not have an X DNA match to your great-grandmother, or it's great-grandfather,
great-grandfather.
And you might. So I would look at both. But certainly starting with your brothers would make it easier because you're maybe a smaller pool. So if there's a match, then if he has a match, then certainly start there. That makes sense. So the DNA descendants list all the people who have descended from you genealogically, and some of these will definitely be DNA matches. And you can see first of all, if they've been confirmed by DNA, that their parent-child relationship is confirmed. And you can also see if they've taken any tests. So if you look at Earl Golden's there, where it says why DNA tested, you can tell that they've tested. And so then you can actually contact them directly. Now, it's quite possible you'll have cousins that are listed here that have done DNA tests, but they just haven't told WikiTree yet. They haven't added it to their profile. So it's worth reaching out to them. And even if they themselves haven't done that DNA test, it's possible that, maybe their children or their parents or their cousins or brother or siblings may have done a DNA test, and someone else whose test would also be related to you. So it's worth reaching out to other WikiTreeers. So when you click on any of those, you get the information about the tests and where they are located. And in some cases, the actual test kit numbers or GEDmatch kit numbers, so you can follow up on that.
Awesome.
And then there is an actual guide that helps you with DNA confirmation, which gives you a little chart up to your third great-grandparents. And when there's a check mark, that means that relationship has been confirmed. And so it gives you a nice visual clue on who you should be looking at next if you want to complete those confirmations. The final tab there is with your surname, and it'll show all the WikiTreeers who share that surname and who have done DNA tests and where those tests are. So some of those may be cousins you've never met before. They could be distant ones. Megs has a couple slides here because her last name Galden has been spelled or misspelled a number of different ways over the years. So sometimes that's important. So if I was looking up under Clarke, for example, I would check Clarke with an E and Clarke without an E, even though with the E is the proper spelling. Says the one with the E. But also on my Douglas, my biological side, actually my birth father's spelled Douglas with only one S at the end, but go back 2 generations and they're spelled with 2 S's. In fact, one of his first cousins spells it with 2 S's. So I'd have to check both of those 2.
We have that with the Langholfs. You go back a couple generations and it's a double F. And some people dropped an F, some people kept both F's, some people dropped the L.
Spelling is so fun, isn't it?
So fun.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are. This is the most exciting part, the confirmations with DNA. Okay.
Yay.
So a few things you should know before we go into this. What does it mean to be confirmed with DNA? So what it means is that it means that we're confirming that this specific relationship between this child and their parents that has been confirmed. So a confirmation with DNA is specifically a parent-child relationship that we're talking about. And in particular, it means that the DNA match that this is that this shows is consistent with the genealogical connection that you've already proven. So you need to have done all your genealogy. You need to have sources to prove that you are related to this other person in the way that you think you are, or that and so for example, so if you're trying to, if you've got a DNA match that says you're second cousins with someone, that means you share a set of great grandparents. You need to have done the genealogy to confirm all the steps up to your second great grandparents, and then from them down to that second cousin. Okay, so birth records, whatever, so that you have a solid set of references and sources to validate that relationship. If you don't have a genealogy, if you don't have that relationship proven genealogically, then you can't confirm with DNA, because DNA is not a proof. You cannot use DNA to prove anything. The only relationship that you can actually use DNA to prove is a parent-child one, because the amount of DNA a parent and child share is unique, because it's so much. It's massive, right? It's half of their DNA.
Half to the DNA, yeah.
Half their DNA. Every other relationship, there's at least 1 or 2 possible interpretations based on the amount of DNA. And when you get first cousins or lower, there are many possibilities. So DNA can never prove a relationship, but what it can do is it can confirm that the relationship that you have proven genealogically makes sense and is consistent. Okay, so that's something that people get hung up on a lot. Okay, and I think it's the biggest takeaway. If there's anything else you take away from that, it's that DNA doesn't prove a relationship. But if a relationship has already been proven genealogically, then it can confirm that relationship makes sense. But then, just like every other, so DNA is really just another source. It's like another, and that's why we add source citations when we say that something is confirmed by DNA. Like where did they get this conclusion from? But just like every other source, it's open to interpretation. So if you have a birth record, and then later on you find that, well, that was actually their adoptive birth record, and the real birth record was found somewhere else, right? And then you have to adjust, everything else. Yeah. This DNA, because there are multiple possible, interpretations, if you find other information later on, then possibly this needs to be adjusted as well. So DNA confirmation does not mean proof, and it is based on the parent-child. So when we look at that parent-child relationship, there are status indicators. When you go into the edit screen, there are status indicators that indicate how a child is related to their parents. So most often, so a lot of people don't touch those at all. But if you were to choose one, then it can go from non-biological if the relationship is an adoptive one or a foster relationship. Uncertain if you're really not sure about this connection. Confident is what most people would use if you've got some source to indicate the relationship is a valid one. And then the confirmed with DNA is the one that we will add if we find a DNA match that is consistent with the genealogical one. And the DNA confirmation, we only use it for the parent-child relationship. We don't use it for other relationships like children, siblings, and spouses, because that's sort of, if you've got the one type of relationship, then the other ones can be implied from that. So that's what those radio buttons look like. And you can see that in this particular one, the bottom one has been marked off as the mother is confirmed with DNA, and the father one hasn't been chosen yet. It's simply left in this natural stage. Now, there's a lot of help pages on the DNA confirmation, how to do a DNA confirmation, and so you can go through those. Some of them, maybe it's been a while since some of those have been tweaked, and some of them have been tweaked really recently, so that's sort of a work in progress. There's a distinction between how close you can be to do a DNA confirmation. So if your third cousins are closer, then you can just use what's called a simple DNA confirmation. You can, if the genealogy says that your third cousins are closer, second cousins once removed, for example, first cousins once removed, first cousins twice removed, something like that, then you can just use a regular DNA match. But if it's more distant, third cousins once or twice removed, fourth cousins or something like that, then you need to have at least 3 testers to triangulate. And that gets a little more complicated. I'm not going to do an example of one of those today because that just gets a little bit more tricky. So there's basically 2 things. Once you've done all the work and gathered all the data, you're going to mark the relationship as confirmed, and then you're going to add a source citation to say that to indicate on the profile why it's confirmed or what you've done. Okay, so I'm now going to take you through. So this process, it's not a super easy process. There's a bunch of hoops you have to jump through to get to it. But when I was when I had first joined WikiTree, and then when I started wanting to do some DNA confirmations, reading through the help pages and whatnot, I decided that, it is a logical process. There's a set of steps you have to go through each time. So I thought, well, there should be an app for that. So I made an app for that. And that's the DNA Confirmation Citation Maker app. And you can get to it from the apps menu. Go click on Find, go open up the apps page, and scroll down until you'll find the DNA Confirmation Citation Maker app. Click on that and it'll open up. And that's what your home screen will start with. It'll tell you with the version number and when it was last updated. So as of today, the most recent version is 3.02, which was updated at the end of September. And I've done a lot of updating over the summer on the app. So it has lots of new features to it now. And I have links directly to the help pages and some other things that you can click out. And then the other place, if you have the WikiTree browser extension installed, then when you click on the Find Apps, you actually get a flyout, and you can go directly to it from there. The DNA Confirmation Citation Maker is one of those options. So once you open up the page, if you scroll down, here's the main body of the page. So this is really our kicking off spot. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to do a simple DNA match. The process will be similar to do the other types. And at the bottom of the page, there are links to videos on how to do those. Some of those videos need to be updated a little bit, but the process is basically the same. So hopefully after today's presentation, you'll at least have a good sense of how to go through it. and then we can adapt that. So step one is to identify who has taken the DNA test. So I have entered 2 names. There's my WikiTree ID, and here is another WikiTree ID of a relative of mine. Now, because I don't want to, I don't want to use someone who's living and spoil the privacy. I've actually chosen someone who's passed away. So this is someone who's on WikiTree and is a cousin, is less than a third cousin. So someone I can do a simple DNA test with. But this particular true confession, this one did not actually do a DNA test, so I am making it up. The relationship is valid, but the fact that this person did a DNA test is not actually true, but it'll work for the example. So then you click next and you go to step 2. Well, actually it skips step 2 and 3 because anyways, it goes to this page. And on this one, the first question is, look at this mini tree below, and is that right? If that is not right, then something's wrong. Then you don't have the right relative. But this is the one I chose, William Douglas, who is in fact my first cousin twice removed. You can actually see that from the chart. William Douglas and Lyle Douglas are our first cousins, and I am 2 generations removed from them, so that's why it's first cousin twice removed. And it actually says that right there. Underneath the next button, it says William is Greg's first cousin twice removed. You'll also notice there's arrows there. The green arrows mean that those relationships have already been confirmed with DNA. If they were just gray arrows, that means that particular connection hadn't already been confirmed. So that would give you a hint on which ones you need to focus on. But anyways, that mini tree is accurate, so I can go on to the next stage. And the next stage is 3 very important questions. Are you sure about this? So have you confirmed that this relationship matches your traditional genealogy? Yes. And does this come from a DNA testing company like Ancestry or FamilyTree DNA, or from a third-party site like the GEDmatch? Yes, it does. And is the relationship that the testing company says you are, does that jive with what your traditional genealogy research says? And yes. Now, if you answered no to any of those questions, then you cannot go, do not go further, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You cannot do a DNA confirmation. But we did say yes, and we're going to go on. So then at this point, you fill out the details about your DNA test, the company, how much you share. And so this, you'll have to refer to your Ancestry screen, your MyHeritage screen, or FamilyTree, whatever. You'll refer to that to enter this information. The testing company, again, it's just a drop down, so you can just click on that and it'll drop down. And then you put in what the relationship is that the company predicted, okay? So that, fill that in, and then when you hit next, or actually, even before you hit next, once you've filled that in, you will see a new link that wasn't there before, but I just added it this summer. And that's a direct link to DNA Painter. Now, DNA Painter, Johnny Pearl's website, has a number of different tools, and one of them is the Shared Centimorgan project. And when you click on that link, it will take you to the page, the specific page that's related to what you entered. So you entered in 230 centimorgans, right? And that it was a first cousin twice removed. Well, the mini tree actually told us that it was a first cousin twice removed. So when you click on that link, you will come to a customized web page that shows you 230 centimorgans entered in, and the chart, the probability chart. And see, there's first cousins twice removed right there, is on there in the highest percentage band.
Cool.
That gives me a very good feeling that this DNA match does in fact match the genealogy.
Awesome.
And if I clicked on that first cousin twice removed link in that chart, I would get this cool histogram. Look at how beautiful that is.
It is.
And what's even cooler is that the 230 centimorgans is right smack dab in the middle. So this couldn't be any better if I fudged it myself. But that gives me a very high confidence that this is probably the relationship that the DNA matches the genealogy and everything is copacetic. Now, because DNA is random, you're not always going to get picture perfect results like this. Your red arrow, it may be over here at the 20% or the 80% in terms of the distribution, but as long as it's there, you know, in a good part of the body, and it's listed in the chart as a possible one, then you're probably okay. But the closer it is to the center, the better, of course.
Yeah.
But anyways, that gives me a lot of confidence that this is in fact a valid DNA match, and it jives with the genealogy. So I'm going to go ahead and do the confirmation. And so when you get to the last stage, here you are. You're all ready to do the DNA confirmation and add it to the profile. And so there's a bunch of parts to it. So that's step 7. So one part is entering in those parental radio buttons, right? Yeah. Saying DNA is confirmed. And I've blown that up so you can see what it looks like there. And the other part is adding the citation at the end in the sources section. So let's zoom in on that little part. Now, one feature I added this summer is over in the far left, there's this little wee mini tree icon. Okay, remember we saw the mini tree earlier? If you click on that, you will get the mini tree, boom, back.
Oh, cool.
Full life. And so, and it's side by side with the instructions for adding the DNA confirmation. So it gives you a visual guide to what the heck you're doing. Because there's a lot of words on this page.
Yes, there are.
I admit there's a lot of words, a lot of verbiage, and they're intentional because they are to guide you step by step, because I can't be with you and Zoom with you as you do every one of these confirmations. So the only way I can tell you is to give instructions like that. But basically, you follow the bullet points one by side. So we're starting with the confirmation of William Douglas and Mary Bigger with their son, Herbert Douglas. So the first step is you have to go open up Herbert Douglas's edit page. And if you click on that, that's what it'll do. And so in the mini tree, look at, see that, that's that top corner. It's that relationship that we're looking at. It's the parent-child relationship. Remember, DNA confirmation is always parent-child. And so in this case, it's just the relationship between Herbert, who is my great-grandfather, and his parents, my great-great-grandparents. Okay, and because they are the most recent common ancestors of both me and my DNA tester, William, we can confirm that both of those relationships can be confirmed with DNA. So we're going to open up his edit page. We're going to click on those two radio buttons. And then the next step is that we can go and add the citation at the bottom of the page. So now we need to verify. So it says either verify or add this source citation. Now it said verify because it read the profile and it saw that the citation was already there, or it knew that it was already marked. So in this case, I probably don't have to add it because it's already there. But it does tell you to verify it, because what if it got erased by mistake? Yeah. And here's you can hit the copy button and it'll copy all of this text. Now, if you look at this text inside here, some of that looks like gobbledygook because it's in WikiText's functions, and some of it gives links. When you do copy that, of course, then you have to put in, you're going to copy that, put it at the bottom in your sources section, and make sure you explain your changes that you're adding a DNA confirmation. And then this is what it'll look like on the page. So all the gobbledygook, it's translated into direct links to Ancestry, to each of the profiles of the people. It tells you their relationship. And if you click on that, first cousin twice removed, it opens up the relationship. How am I related? It opens up that directly to show how Greg and William are related to each other.
Cool.
And then, of course, direct links to the profiles of the common ancestors. And then the details from Ancestry, which is what other people coming to this page will need to know is, well, they said they're related, but where's the evidence? Well, there's the evidence right there. That's your source citation evidence. And then I've added this feature as well, telling you exactly when it was updated. And actually those 4 tildes will get replaced by a name and date and stuff. So then if you verify it, then it gets marked in green, so you know, because it's a really long web page, so that you don't have to use that little checkbox, but I put it in there so you can use it as a way to track. And then there's a bonus, because we have now, if you look at the mini tree, you see the red there. What's red? That's the relationship we have now verified, and we've added a source citation for. But if you see the path from Greg Clarke, from me, all the way up to our common ancestors, back down to William, every one of those steps can actually be confirmed with DNA, because my relationship to William has been confirmed as first cousin twice removed. And for that to be valid, that means every step in between us through our direct ancestors is also valid and can be confirmed. And so the app gives you all of those extra citations that you can add. So
that's super cool.
So this is the DNA match we've done between Greg and William. And because of that, we can add all these others. So William, Herbert, you can confirm his relationship to his son Lyle. You can confirm Lyle's relationship to his son Dwight. You can confirm Dwight's relationship to his son, me. And you can confirm the ancestral couple's relationship to William's father, Richard. And then you can confirm Richard's relationship to his son, William. So all of those relationships you can add source citations for.
Very cool.
Isn't that cool?
Awesome.
And then when you click on that show citations, and there they are. And it's the same sort of process. You open up you edit the profile of the child, click the confirm with DNA button appropriately. So in this case, it's not just the father, it's only the father that we can confirm, because it's Lyle going to Herbert. We can't, from this DNA match, we can't confirm Lyle's mother. We would have to do a different match through his mother's line.
Gotcha.
To do that. And then we copy the stuff, and then it's good. And
Stephen had a quick question.
Okay.
If you confirm a match and you made a mistake, can you just delete that gobbledygook from the profile and start again?
You certainly can. Yes. Yes, nothing's set in stone. Yeah, so delete that. You can reset the marker from confirm with DNA to just confident. Or if you find out something else that, well, maybe this isn't actually the biological parent, then you can actually go one step back to uncertain if you need to. But yes, you can always step it back if you need, if that's an issue.
And Amanda said, so you have to add the citation to each of the profiles separately.
Yes, you do. Yeah, it's not automated in that regard. I really felt uncomfortable adding a feature that would just automatically randomly put text on profiles in case there was a mistake. I wanted you to use your WikiTree brain to make the decision and do it individually. Now, if you've got a really long, like if you're going third cousin to third cousin, that's a long tree. So that's that's like 7 steps, but it's worth it. And actually some of them may already be confirmed, right? So some of them may already have the citation there. You just have to verify that. Yeah.
And then Eliza said, what about in groups like French Canadians?
Groups like French Canadians. So you're worried about pedigree collapse and endogamy, right? So for third cousins or below, even if there isn't endogamy, you can still use those simple matches and use this for that. Now, sometimes if there actually is a double, if there is some pedigree collapse, or two brothers married 2 sisters, then your DNA amount will be larger than you might expect based on the DNA painter chart. But if you take that into account because of the way your genealogy is, and that the DNA amount matches that genealogy, you can certainly still use that. If it's going beyond third cousins, then you have to use triangulation, and that gets trickier because when you use triangulation, then you have to verify that the 3 or more people that are testing all come from a single common ancestor or ancestral couple. And when you have pedigree collapse and endogamy, you're going to have multiple couples to choose from. In that case, you can't. If you can't zero in on just a single ancestral couple for your triangulation, then you can't use it. Okay. So a couple of things that I haven't gone through, but are other things from a simple DNA match. The example I just showed you, I put in my WikiTree ID and then a WikiTree ID of someone else. So if you've got another living WikiTreeer and you put on their ID, then everything will work very smoothly. But I've built in an option so that you can, if you manage your one of your children's tests or a grandchild's test, and you can use, and if they're not on WikiTree, you can use them. There's a radio button here to choose child or grandchild for option 1 for a different DNA tester, or you can put a different DNA ID at the front. It doesn't not always have to be your own, but I've pre-populated with your own when you log in, because that's just the most likely one you're used. And then for the second DNA tester, it can be someone who's private, and so you only want to use an alias or a set of initials to protect their privacy. Or it could be a non-WikiTreeer, in which case you'd have to use some type of alias, maybe just their first name or something like that. And then that first step, there's a little extra step. There's an extra step where you have to identify who the common ancestors are, because if they're not on WikiTree, WikiTree can't guess. You have to tell them which one of your great-great-grandparents they descend from, and so on. And then, again, there's similar ways to use this citation maker to do other DNA tests. At the very bottom, there is help. You can reset if you're halfway through and you're just all discombobulated. You can hit the reset button, and then at the very bottom, there's a link to an FAQs section. There are links to updates from the G2G posts, and there are videos as well. And there's a contact the author. You can always send me a message, so I can try and help there. Cool. When you're done, when you have DNA confirmed, one of the features back in the fan chart is to highlight people based on the confirmations. So you can see I have actually been able, after a number of years, been able to confirm up to all of my great-great-grandparents and 3 of my great-great-great-grandparents by DNA. So I've been lucky that way. So that's a cool way of doing that.
That is cool.
Now, we are past the hour. Let's see. So I was gonna talk about DNA categories, and basically, you know how adding categories in WikiTree is really, really powerful. Well, one of the things you can do is you can actually create a custom category just for DNA projects that you're part of, or a DNA haplogroup that you're part of. So Megs has added a Y-DNA haplogroup for Earl, for example. So you click on that, and then you'll get a list of all the people who share in that haplogroup that are in the category. And let's see, and then here's an example of a mitochondrial DNA haplogroup that Megs has set up, and people who are part of that.
Cool.
Another, in terms of collaboration, there are lots of group projects. WikiTree DNA hosts a number of group projects on their site, so that is a good resource. But there's also free space pages that you could create and host DNA group projects as well on WikiTree. And Megs has set up one for the Templetons, and she has made some amazing finds based on the work that's been done with this group project. And so that is one thing that I could recommend. And you can look at, she's got one, Roberta Estes has one that Megs helped set up as well. There's a number of DNA group projects that are on WikiTree. And if you want to set up one, you can use those as guides to look at. And the last thing that we were going to talk about is DNA sharing, and cousin bait. Because if you find finding someone who matches your DNA, who know their genealogy, that can tell you something about your genealogy that you maybe didn't know about. So on Megs's profile, she actually has a whole section in her profile on DNA. And one of those is the list of her surnames. So she showed this to me and then challenged me to make an app that created that, because she did this by hand on her own. And then I made an app which does it automatically.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
And it's the surname generator app, which is you can get from the apps page. Or again, if you have the flyout from WikiTree browser extension, it's listed there as well. And that will generate this list of surnames. And then the other thing is, if you have added your DNA tests, then at the top of your profile, it will tell you exactly where. So this is the top of my profile. It tells me exactly. It tells you, anyone visiting, exactly where I've tested DNA. So that's helpful for other people to find out. And let's see. I think, yeah. And there is in fact, in the menu, there is an option for cousin bait as well. And I believe that is the end of the presentation. I only went over by 11 minutes.
That's pretty good. 911.
Yeah.
Sandy had a question.
Okay.
For WikiTree policy, if a birth certificate was falsified, but there is a DNA match, that cannot be DNA confirmed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you need that. You need solid genealogical proof that this person is exactly who connected, how you said. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was great.
Was that okay?
I learned a lot. Yeah.
It was a bit.
And it's a lot, but it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. I decided to do the screenshots because I didn't want to fumble around waiting for the app to load and all that sort of stuff. So I think I still saved a little bit of time by doing that and being able to highlight different parts of the screen. Hopefully that a little easier to follow.
Oh, I thought that worked well.
Yeah. You can always watch this again another time if my tour of the DNA confirmation app and how to do those was a little difficult. And yeah, you can always watch it.
Well, it's a lot, and especially if you're not super well versed in DNA.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to watch a few times to understand.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for joining me, Eowyn. What else can we look forward to today?
Let's see. Do you happen to have the WikiTree help page? The WikiTree Week help page there that you could share?
Let me see. Let me grab that. I have to escape out of here. WikiTree. The WikiTree. I can open up the WikiTree Week page. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, I just stopped sharing. So let me. Okay, where's my cursor? Which monitor is it on now?
What's happening? Where am I?
What? Where am I? Who am I?
Who am I? What are we doing here again?
Yeah. There we go. Let me zoom in on that. Going down.
Yeah, if you want to go to Friday.
Here we are.
So there's a few activities for today. One is just if you've never added your DNA test information, Greg just showed us how to do that. So
do that.
Another one is just if you've tested with any of these big sites, they give you this cool, breakdown of your ethnicity estimates. So you can come and share those in G2G, because I just think they're really fun to look at, especially, when they're colorful or, different places. So come and share that there. There's a place in G2G to come and share if you have a really cool DNA match story, like, how you discovered one, or if it helped you break a brick wall or something like that, come and share that there. And then Julie is hosting Friday date night at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's a Zoom. That's a fun group. If you watched her tips yesterday and you want to get into dating more, go hang out with the people who do it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got a cubicle party at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we've got some people coming who can help you with DNA confirmations.
Nice.
So come and chat and on those, and if you have questions, there should be a couple people there that can help answer them. So we've got that. There is a Midnight Madness tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, we're doing another one.
Wow.
So there is that. We just did this
We
DNA
did that.
check. Then we've got 2 bingos today. So come win a prize if you can. And then I guess I'm doing a roundup at 8 Eastern.
You're doing a roundup?
Hopefully it was someone else, not just me.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what's going on today.
Sounds great.
Should be fun.
It's a busy day. Well, thank you again for joining me, Eowyn.
Absolutely.
This was fun.
It was fun.
Happy WikiTree week.
Friday.
And we'll see you lots of things going on today. So enjoy that for your DNA Friday, and then come back tomorrow for the roundup, the final roundup of WikiTree week, which is happening tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And if you don't get your DNA confirmation questions answered during the cubicle party, I am hosting an hour-long tech help Zoom tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and I will try to answer any tech questions you have, which could include DNA confirmations.
Sorry, can you go back to the WikiTree page real quick?
Sure can.
And scroll down to the research parties, because I think there's actually New Zealand starts at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yes.
And then the England one is at 4 a.m. Eastern. So
yes.
I just wanted to mention those real quick, because by the time we're here tomorrow, it'll be too late.
It'll be too late. Okay. Good one. Excellent.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.